like maybe 3 months ago. So to date, I have been doing kind of a combination of a colleague of mine who's in the Dallas, Texas area, has been doing them for a couple of years now, and so she has a kind of an optimized nomogram that she came up with, and that it's kind of according to doing manual white-to-white measurements with a digital caliper.
Okay.
And because what she was finding, and I'm sure you've heard this a million times, is that the, for instance, the biometry white-to-white was often a little on the generous side.
Yeah.
And also the OCO's website was also on the generous side, and so she was finding that she was having to explant ICLs more often than not because the vault was too large. And so she shared her nomogram with me, so I'm doing kind of a, doing my manual white-to-white on the day that I do the laser, the LPIs, and then, that's like, it's obviously like feels very inaccurate when I'm doing it, but I'll do like 5 measurements per eye and take an average and kind of use that as a little bit of information, and then I will kind of always know that it's going to be a little bit less than the LensStar white-to-white.
Yeah.
And then of course I'm putting it into the OCO's website to order the ICL, and then what I'm finding myself doing is I kind of know where like the split is, where when they'll go down to the next lowest or the highest, or go up to the higher size. And if they're kind of near that, fairly near, like less than 50%, like closer to the smaller size, like I'll choose the smaller. I'm definitely erring on the smaller size, and but it's very like Gestalty. So I mean, the good news is I haven't like had any ICLs that are like sitting on the human lens yet, thankfully. And if anything, they're more generous vaults, even when I choose to go down, which is often.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. I'm not going to lie to you. So,
well, that's exciting then to have ultrasound, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it feels kind of irresponsible the way I'm doing it, and so this is going to make me feel, confident and proud, and like I'm doing the best thing for the patient. And it's always rewarding. They've all been really, really happy, and I haven't had any, terrible pressure issues yet. And I think it's because I'm erring on the smaller side, but this is just, I feel like this is going to help so much. So
I think, in general, the technology, thankfully for STAR, is forgiving. So, even in, if you look at the literature, even people that use white-to-white, the average lens rise or lens separation is, they're getting a vault of like 700, which you would think would be, if they're using lenses that are a size or even sometimes 2 sizes too big, you would think that there would be a huge number of patients over 1,000, over 1 millimeter. But there's something happens when the lens hits its upper limit. It's like, luckily most of the patients still do pretty well. Around, although the vault's higher than one would really want at 700 or 800, they still end up managing, pretty well, which is lucky for STAR. But what you'll find is, and what we found in doing ultrasound, is that it's reducing the number of outliers, right? Because that's really, the ones you're trying to eliminate are the ones that STAR recommended maybe 2 sizes too large, or if you go down a size, then it's going to rest on the lens. So there, it's not like every patient is saving you from a mistake, but it's going to, like you said, just take the practice, in my experience, just to the next level where you can be nearly assured that the lens that you're putting there is the right lens, which is comforting at the end of the day.
Can I ask a very elementary question? You're not going to believe this question. Can you tell me what is considered the ideal vault?
So, interesting. Well, there's not really one. I think in a perfect world, like anterior segment anatomy normal for everybody with the same, with the same anterior chamber angle of like 35 to 40 degrees pre-op in the 25-year-old, if you could get everybody at like 500, that's pretty good, where the lens isn't going to hit their natural lens even as they age and their natural lens thickens. And it's not going to be too big where it's going to shut down their angle.
Okay.
Doherty's paper using Sonomeb is their average vault was about 300 and something, and then Kojima's paper, I'll send them to you. Kojima's paper, which he used the Quantel handheld, and their average was about, he oversized a little bit, and their average was like 600 to 700. So, to us, if you look at everything else, if a patient is somewhere between like, 300 and 800, you're doing pretty well for short and long term. Probably low probability of causing complications. But
Great.
Yeah.
Ryan, this is Barry. Are you measuring, post-op that vault on all patients, and in what condition is that eye in terms of, is it just normal light in the room? How are you, having the patient present when you measure that vault post-operatively?
So the room lighting is, pretty normal. The lighting isn't a huge factor for the device because their eye's sealed in the cup. So you're going to get somewhere like around like a scotopic kind of look at the pupil.
Makes sense.
The thing that we were measuring just central vault postoperatively until ACOS a couple of weeks ago, and Roger Zaldivar, Barry, I don't know if you've seen his talk, but I don't know if Dan sent it, but Zaldivar, he's done like 30,000 ICLs. I think he's implanted more than anyone in the world. So he actually made a really simple, elegant point, which was when you're implanting a high myopic lens, because of the concavity of the center, because of the power, the central vault isn't really, it's manufacturally higher than what it is in like a -3 lens. And so in the really high power lenses, what we've started to do is actually measure mid-peripherally, right where the optic starts to kind of flatten out, because you'll find the patient has like a 600 central vault, but if you put the calipers mid-peripherally, and I can show you a case, you'll find the vault, the separation from the natural lens is like only 200 microns, which in a 25-year-old patient probably isn't enough, because if the lens increases 100 microns every decade, then, in 20 years, the patient's going to be touching and they're going to get cataracts when they're 40. So there's some variation to it, and I think we're still learning as well. Going along after, we've done our review on 50 eyes, so it's still a learning process as far as how the insight can help, with the safety long term, and I think the field as a whole, as more and more people start to use Insight and just generally handheld UBM for ICL, I think There'll be
So Greg is here. I just want to let you guys know that Greg is here, so we can start whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, great. Hi, Greg.
Hey, how's it going?
All right,
Sorry
thank
for
you.
the delay.
No worries. Okay, so if you want to, well, I don't know how much time you guys have. When's the first patient, or when do you need to start to set up for the day?
Probably, 8:15 or so. So that's like about an hour from now.
Okay. Is it worth watching just on the screen how Tarek does the scan as he's scanning me, or are you comfortable with that part?
I'm comfortable with the scan part, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then we can go to number 2, which is the discussion of the pre-op scan setup and modification of the XML file. Barry, you can jump in here, but we've just actually, in the last few days, Tarek has changed the XML file in our machine.
Fantastic.
So we've now just done a new protocol for preoperative scanning. So can you see him as he works on the screen?
I can, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I can.
So you see where actually I'll just let him talk as he works through the 2 different scan sets he's written.
Hey guys. So the 2 that we tend to use are this one, the ICL pre-op. You can see it's a 9-meridian scan, all of them spaced equally around plus and minus 40 degrees. In terms of the scan setting, the sweep radius at 14 millimeters, I think, that gives us quite a nice, kind of a nice balance between being able to get in the whole anterior segment as well as good detail out in the sort of the width of the axillary body. And yeah, just having these spacings between plus and minus 40 means, if there are any cysts or any other kind of pathology that you want to see out there, you've got a better chance of catching it in that kind of crucial range that, if you're implanting an ICL, the foot plates are going to sit somewhere in that range.
Tarek, do you know what where the focal line is, how many millimeters back?
So we set it manually every time, but basically we're looking to get it just behind, when you see in the rangefinder, you've got the green signal line, you've got the 2 returns from the front and back surface of the cornea, and then you've got the kind of fuzzy block of returns that are from somewhere around the lens or the iris. You want to kind of focus just behind that, and that gives you a good approximation of where the socket is. So I can show you, for example, let me just find a patient. So, yeah, so you see, it gives you, I show you where the focus line is. So it's quite far back. This is probably a little bit too far back. But if you think in terms of what you're looking at in the rangefinder, it's just behind that sort of the fuzzy block of lines that is usually from the iris. So you're looking just behind that.
Fantastic.
And it gives you, some decent, you can see the sulcus, you can see, all you really need is the posterior cornea, right? Anything else is a bit of a waste because, unless you're measuring the chemistry with it, which you're not going to do with this scan, you may as well just come a little bit deeper and get more information a little bit deeper into the eye. But yeah, so we'll do that manually centered just on. I mean, sometimes you can see the reflex of the fixation line. If not, then if you know they've got a large angle kappa, you can approximate where the vertex is, or if not, just on the pupil center. But the really important thing for us is that we set the focus manually every time, because everyone's anterior chamber is a different depth, and the machine will always, if you do an auto range, it will always adjust the focus based on what it is. So we really have to do it now.
And Greg, we will go ahead and help you out with that ability to do auto and manual. Okay, we'll come down and help out with that. All right?
Yeah. Okay.
Just a quick note on that is that you're going to run into some patients that you're scanning that have very deep set eyes, and so our nurses and technicians will then do two completely different sets of scans, right? So they'll use the same scan set, but they'll do it once with the whole anterior chamber so you can see the cornea, but you lose the detail of the ciliary body and the lens. And then they'll do a whole nother set where they just sacrifice the cornea altogether, so there's no cornea in the scan, but you can actually get then really nice sulcus and ciliary body images. So it's rare that someone has an eye that deep set, but if you don't be surprised if you have to do that occasionally.
So then the other types of scan. Oh, I should say, I just go back. I've got the transducer set to 10 nanoseconds pulse width, which gives, in my experience, gives us just enough energy to get good returns from it, so you can see the detail that you want to see. And I think that is the standard default for how the device ships with anterior segment scan. So you could just modify one of the XMLs that's already on there. I'm sure I can give you a hand doing that, or there are a bunch of people that can help you with that. So for this one, 14 millimeters of sweep radius. The other one that we do is, we called it here LVC ICL Sizing. So you can see the meridians are much more closely spaced around the horizontal.
No, you won't have this one either.
And the difference is, I've set it with a sweep radius of 18 millimeters, so it's a bit of a flatter scan, so it means that you get an even wider image, so you can really see you sort of further out than the ciliary body. And because you're looking kind of deeper and wider, I've increased the pulse width to 14 nanoseconds, just gives you a little bit more energy. And if I show you what these look like, you'll see they're subtly different. They're a lot wider, and you can see much more of the ciliary body. So those are the two that we use. The focus line, generally for both, we set the same. You want it somewhere, this is a little bit too anterior, this particular scan. I've got it.
Hey, Tarek, this is Andy. Sorry,
Hey, Andy.
I got a little bit late here this morning. Just a couple things on the focus line. Yeah, we originally set up all the auto ranging to be, we find the cornea and then we go from there. But as we've done more on capsule imaging, we also find natural variation in the anatomy makes that problematic. And so just what's coming is not this current software release next week or two, but next one after, will be able to automatically detect the capsule surface and then go from there on auto range finding, because there's just so much you're trying to do there in critical placement around the capsule surface. Because as you know, and I tried to show Greg this a little bit, although Greg, we were missing a patient, so I was trying to show Greg how to manual range find while I was the patient on the instrument. It was a little challenging, but you always get a really nice reflection in our rangefinder as long as the probe's pretty close to the visual axis. You get a really beautiful reflection off the capsule surface as well. So manually it works quite well. It just takes a little more skill to know what to look for. The other thing on the pulse with this transducer, 10 to 14 nanoseconds, you just don't get, whether it's 10 or 14, you don't get much more power. I'll usually, on any of the deeper scans, I'll do 12, and that's about the peak you're going to get out of this particular transducer. So just FYI. The other.
So we could reduce that 14 to 12.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't give you much. Just an FYI. The other thing, and I know you're going to get to eyelids a little bit. The flatter sweep, you want the focus line to kind of track kind of the natural arc of the anatomy around the iris and the lens. And so it's always a dilemma. Do you do a shallower, wider sweep, like at 18, or do you do a 14? And one thing to note, the shallower you go, the more the probe is looking straight into the eye, and you tend to be somewhat less susceptible to eyelashes and eyelid, because when you think about it, when you're coming at more of an angle, a steeper angle, you're shooting the beam farther from the periphery of the eye, and so if you have eyelid problems, it's exaggerated as you go to a smaller radius. So the 18 oftentimes works. It just I know you're going to talk about eyelid. This particular patient obviously has a very nice open eye, so even on the 14 millimeter radius, you're getting a pretty good image. But the 18 doesn't quite get you the angles that you want for the front of the capsule, but it does tend to get you shooting straighter into the eye, and you're going to get less eyelash and eyelid obstruction, which is always a problem when you get off the bicanthal plane. The one last thing is, we've been curious, and I'm sorry to pepper you with this, I've just been dying to ask. We have not seen yet the full-throated details of your sizing nomogram. We noticed that you do a lot of multi-meridian pre-op imaging, and when we do that, we see not repeatability problems of the instrument, but natural variation of the sulcus or your IBCD dimension, just because of the nature of the anatomy of the ciliary process. Are you intending then to take multiple meridians and average, or why are you taking the time to do the multi-meridian on a pre-op image?
So I mean, I think that's really the kind of the last point for the team in Denver, is that, so if you think about it, so the first one that Tarek showed that goes from 40 above to 40 below,